A poor boy gives his only $2 to a millionaire disguised as a beggar. 3 days later, the boy's life changes completely. Hello, my friends. I am Marcos Paulo, the storyteller, and today I will take you on a journey that will touch the depths of your heart. Imagine this, a cold night in Los Angeles where the lights of Hollywood shine, but in the shadows of an alley, a 10-year-old boy with nearly empty pockets holds $2 crumpled dollars. He sees an elderly beggar, trembling under a tattered blanket, and without a second thought, places all his money into the man's trembling hands. "Take it, sir. Buy something warm," he says, with a pure smile that cuts through the darkness. But gee, what if I told you that this beggar wasn't who he seemed? That in reality, he was a millionaire in disguise, testing the kindness of people, and that in just 3 days, this small act of generosity would change this boy's life forever. No one in that crowded street knew what was happening. No one saw the gleam in the beggar's eyes. Richard Hale, a tech billionaire, as he accepted those $2 with silent tears. "Why do you give me this, little one?" he asked, his voice hoarse with emotion, and the boy, Alex, replied with an innocence that broke his heart, "Because you seem to need it more than I do." This moment was the beginning of something extraordinary. What would Richard do with this gesture? Ignore it, or use his fortune to change Alex's destiny? Stay with me, because this story will make you laugh, cry, and believe in the power of kindness. Leave a comment now. Where are you watching from? Subscribe to the channel and like the video so you don't miss a single detail. Let's dive into this adventure together. The night fell over Los Angeles, neon lights reflecting in the puddles as Alex returned to his corner in the alley, a makeshift space with boxes and a worn-out blanket. Richard, disguised, followed him with a heavy heart, feeling for the first time in years a human connection. The contrast was heartbreaking. A boy with nothing yet full of soul against a man with everything but empty inside. What would happen in the next 3 days? The promise of a transformation hung in the air, leaving a suspense that made hearts beat faster. Get ready for a lesson that will change how you see the world. Richard, with the $2 tucked away like a treasure, murmured to himself, "Who is this boy who gives everything without asking for anything?" The doubt grew. Could such a small act rekindle the faith of a cynic? The city continued its frenetic pace, unaware of the miracle about to be born. In the next few minutes, you'll discover how $2 can buy much more than food. They can buy a future. Now, let's meet our heroes. First, Alex, a 10-year-old boy whose eyes carry more stories than his age suggests. He was born on the streets of Los Angeles, orphaned since the age of 5, when he lost his parents in an accident no one in the city seems to remember. Each day for him is a battle, shining shoes under the scorching Hollywood sun, or scavenging cans among the trash of Skid Row. His home, a chilly corner in an alley, protected only by a blanket so old it barely covers him. But oh friends, what makes Alex special isn't what he has, but what he gives. With a smile that warms even the coldest heart, he shares his last piece of bread with street dogs or helps a beggar stand up. He is poor in possessions, but rich in soul. But Alex's life isn't easy. Loneliness is his constant companion. Without family, without steady friends, he faces the world alone, bearing the weight of looks that judge him dirty and useless. How many times has he heard that, huh? Yet deep in his heart, Alex dreams. He dreams of a family to embrace him, of a school where he can learn, of one day becoming a doctor to heal the sick of the streets as he once was. He keeps those dreams in a tattered notebook, written with a broken pencil, but without money, they seem as distant as the stars he counts at night. Alex has no power to change his life. He depends on the charity of strangers, which rarely comes, and avoids stealing, following a lesson his mother whispered before she passed. "Be good, my son." Sometimes lying in the alley, he gazes at the sky and wonders, is it worth being good in such a cruel world? That doubt consumes him, but it's precisely this purity that will make him the heart of an incredible story. For now, he's just a lost little boy, but with a heart that shines brighter than the lights of LA. And then there's Richard Hale, a name that echoes through the corridors of Silicon Beach. At 60 years old, he is a tech billionaire, owner of a fortune built with iron hands, living in a penthouse in Beverly Hills with a view of the Pacific. But friends, behind that wealth lies a broken man. Betrayals from partners and a bitter divorce stole his faith in humanity. He isolated himself, surrounded by luxury, but empty inside. To fill that void, Richard began disguising himself as a beggar, walking the streets of LA to test if any goodness remained in the world. If I find a pure heart, he thought, maybe I can believe again. And it was in this way that our paths crossed. The boy who gives everything and the man who lost everything, about to meet in a moment that would change it all. But life doesn't leave Alex in peace for long. The day after his encounter with Richard, he wakes up with his stomach growling louder than ever. Without the $2, there's no food, and the morning cold cuts like a knife. While scavenging cans near a dumpster in downtown LA, a gang of street toughs, teenagers hardened by life, surrounded him. "Look at the generous one," the leader mocked, snatching Alex's worn-out blanket. "Now freeze, you fool." They laughed, kicking the cans he'd collected, leaving him trembling on the ground. The injustice hit like a punch to the gut, and the reader feels the weight of this humiliation alongside him. From the other side, Richard watched from afar, hidden behind a pole. He gave everything. Let's see how he handles the worst, he thought, his billionaire heart analyzing Alex's character like an experiment. But it wasn't all about Alex. A rival of Richard, a tech magnate named Victor Crane, discovered the disguise through corporate spies. "I'll expose this madman," Victor hissed, spreading malicious rumors that Richard was a crazy billionaire playing beggar, threatening his impeccable reputation. Alex stood up, his hands shaking, feeling a helplessness that swallowed him whole. His street friends, who once laughed with him, now abandoned him, forming a circle of isolation. "You shamed us by giving money to a beggar," they said, turning their backs. He, who always helped, saw his world crumbling, unsure how to react. The night approached, and the cold without a blanket promised to be merciless. Richard, noticing Alex's anguish, approached as a beggar and murmured with a soft voice, "Kindness returns, boy. Believe me." It was a subtle hint of hope. But Alex, with tears in his eyes, retorted, "Returns to who? No one cares." He pushed Richard away, trapped in his pain, but the words lingered, planting a seed of doubt. Could there be something more behind this? The threat from the toughs grew. "If you don't pay us, we'll get you again," they threatened, throwing stones near him. Alex spent the night huddled in a damp corner, his body trembling, his mind revisiting his decision to give away the $2. The crisis worsened his poverty, and he wondered, with a tight heart, is being good worth this pain? The city remained lit, oblivious to the human drama in the shadows. Richard didn't give up. The next day, he returned as a beggar, insisting, "You helped me. Tell me why." This persistence was a subtle challenge to Alex's worldview, forcing him to face the root of his kindness. As they spoke, a local reporter captured the scene, amplifying a false scandal about Richard, labeling him an eccentric lunatic. Richard's life turned into a public hell, and he isolated himself, but Alex's words, "You need it more," continued to echo, suggesting a path to redemption he was beginning to glimpse. But the second day brought an even harsher blow to Alex. With hunger gnawing at his stomach, he dragged himself to a store in Koreatown, asking for leftovers with a shy voice. The owner, a man with a hard face, shouted, "Get out, you filthy beggar! I don't want thieves in my shop." Customers laughed, pointing and mocking, "Look at the little pauper." Alex ran to a dark corner, tears streaming down his dirty face, his heart shattered. The rejection cut deeper than the cold, and you, friend, feel that pain with him, don't you? Richard, still disguised, saw it all from afar and approached, extending a wrinkled hand. "Let me help you, boy," he said softly. But Alex, wounded, exploded. You don't understand. Everyone hates me for being poor. Go away. Rejecting even the beggar amplified his shame, a moment that makes the reader want to hug this boy and scream against the injustice. The scene is raw, showing a world that judges without seeing the soul. The media, always hungry for sensationalism, captured a photo of Alex crying, which went viral as the beggar boy of LA. The headlines were cruel: pathetic poverty exposed. False friends abandoned him, whispering that he was a loser. Worse still, the toughs returned, beating him with sticks, laughing, "You're weak for being kind." Each blow echoed the inequality, isolating him in a silence of pain. The alley became his prison, the world's laughter resonating in his ears. Alex curled up in a corner, drinking dirty water from a puddle, his body exhausted, his soul wounded by loneliness. This humiliation was his rock bottom, but a spark of vengeance against the world began to glow, a fire born of despair. He wondered if his kindness was worth this price, his eyes fixed on the distant lights of LA. The humiliation spread. An elderly woman passed by and spat, calling him human trash. The words lashed his vulnerability, destroying the image he had of himself. Alex saw his goodness fail to buy respect in a city obsessed with status. Rage consumed him like a wildfire, but Richard's words, "Kindness returns," echoed like a distant whisper, suggesting a different path he could barely glimpse. The next day, the tough sent a crumpled note: "Beg again or suffer worse." Humiliated to his core, Alex considered giving up, his spirit broken, but the memory of his encounter with Richard held him back. The internal pain was unbearable, making him question his existence for the first time. Was there hope beyond this darkness? The humiliation peaked when a childhood acquaintance, now a successful young man, passed by and mocked, "You're nothing, Alex." This shattered him emotionally, but it also planted a seed of change. A spark of hope ignited. Perhaps Richard was right, and retribution would come through transformation, not vengeance. The stage was set for a new beginning. We've reached the third day, friends, and destiny was about to take a turn that will warm your heart. Richard found Alex huddled in the alley, his eyes red from crying, his body trembling from cold and hunger. Then he did something that changed everything. Dropping his beggar disguise, he revealed his true identity with a trembling voice. "I am Richard Hale, a millionaire. Your act of giving me those $2, it changed me." Alex froze, his eyes wide open. "A millionaire?" he whispered, incredulous. Richard nodded, his eyes glistening with tears. "You gave me everything you had, and that rekindled something in me I thought was lost." This revelation planted a new idea in Alex's heart. Generosity could be rewarded. With his chest tight, he decided to accept the help, a timid step that marked the shift from a routine of survival to one of possibility. Richard, with a gentle smile, offered more than words. "Come with me," he said, taking Alex to his Beverly Hills mansion. "You gave me hope when I was empty. Now I give you a new life." The house was a new world, warm rooms, abundant food, and tutors waiting to teach. Alex, still scared, began to study, flipping through children's book pages with trembling fingers, adopting small habits like jotting down dreams in a brand new diary. Each word read was a step out of the alley. In an old box Richard gave him, Alex found a yellowed letter from his late mother, written before the accident. "Always be kind, my little one," she wrote, the words trembling in faded ink. This reinforced Richard's lessons, and Alex murmured, "Maybe giving is the way." He resolved to help others even with nothing before, and the seed of overcoming began to sprout, nurtured by memories and hope. Richard, seeing Alex's potential, took him to an orphanage in South LA. There, among thin children with hungry eyes, Alex saw his own reflection. "I want to help them," he said, with a newfound determination. This small act changed his perspective, and his desire to transform lives grew, guided by Richard's gentle hands. The seed gained strength, promising more. Faced with Alex's determination, Richard ignored threats from Victor, his rival. "You can be great," he affirmed, and Alex believed it, hope becoming real, though fragile against the challenges ahead. The mentee began to see Richard as a beacon, a light at the end of the dark tunnel. Alex dove into self-improvement books Richard brought, absorbing lessons of resilience. He changed his attitude toward the toughs, facing them with words instead of fear. Small progress emerged, a tutor's smile, a classmate offering friendship. The change was subtle but profound, like a flower blooming on concrete. By the end of the day, Alex looked at Richard, his eyes full of gratitude. "Thank you for seeing me," he whispered. The seed was planted, now it needed to be watered. He decided to fight with Richard as his guide toward a life with purpose. The alley of yesterday was just a memory, replaced by a future beginning to shine. Now, friends, let's see how this seed of hope begins to bloom. Richard took Alex to his Beverly Hills mansion, and what happened there was like a dream unfolding. In the marble kitchen with appliances Alex had never seen before, Richard taught him to make pancakes. A simple recipe, but full of laughter. "Kindness always returns," Richard would say, flipping a pancake in the air, and Alex laughed so hard that tears streamed down his face. This moment melted the ice in his heart, and the household staff, who once saw him as a stranger, began treating him like family, sharing life stories over breakfast. Alex immersed himself in private lessons, tackling the enormous challenge of never having learned to read. "You're rich now, what do you know of suffering?" a tutor mocked at first, but Richard intervened. "Show them with actions, Alex." And he did. After weeks of effort, he read his first word, hope, and cried, hugging the book like a treasure. Each lesson was a step, not just for his mind, but for his soul, rebuilding who he was. But it wasn't all easy. Richard's rival, Victor Crane, escalated his attacks. "He's fake, adopting a beggar out of pity," he leaked to the press, with manipulated photos circulating in tabloids. Richard's fortune was at stake, but Alex remained unshaken. He started visiting an orphanage in Compton, teaching the children to write their names, an act that filled him with pride. "If I helped you, I can help them," he told Richard, revealing a growing heart. Richard, with tears in his eyes, shared stories of his poor youth, of how he rose with hard work. "Empathy is what saves us," he taught, and Alex applied this in class, listening to his peers' fears and comforting them. "Thank you for showing me this," Alex said, hope strengthening, though fragile against Victor's threats. Their bond deepened, like father and son. One day, a tough broke into the classroom, demanding money. Richard hired security, earning the school community's trust. "You're changing," Richard observed, and Alex smiled, reconnecting with a distant cousin who sent a supportive letter. The network around him grew, a shield against the storm. Victor hired spies to sabotage Richard's donations, fabricating scandals in sensationalist newspapers. The threat grew, but Alex fought back with transparency, publishing an online diary of his journey. Hope became real, sustained by Richard's unwavering support, a lighthouse in the darkness. Alex and Richard began meditating together at dawn, on balconies overlooking the sea, reducing the stress of their battles. Small acts, like fixing a neighbor's bike, accumulated, strengthening the journey. The fragility of hope kept him vigilant, ready for the next challenges. In the end, Alex saw Richard as a father, calling him Uncle Rich with affection. The journey evolved with constant challenges, the change evident in his confident gaze. Victor planned a final blow, but Alex, transformed by the beggar he met, was ready to face it with courage. But friends, life doesn't give a break. The seventh day brought an obstacle that nearly destroyed everything. Victor Crane, Richard's rival, launched a brutal attack. He sued Richard for fraud, using forged evidence to freeze his assets and expose the disguise to the media. "The end of your empire," he shouted in an interview, and the weight was too much. Richard suffered a stress-induced heart attack, collapsing in his office, hospitalized. "I failed," he whispered lying in bed, considering giving up everything. His heart beat weakly, and the world seemed to crumble. Alex, hearing the news at the orphanage, ran to the hospital, his face wet with tears. "He needs me," he cried at the reception, but security, bribed by Victor, blocked him. "No one enters," they said coldly. The betrayal cut like a knife. The rival had isolated Richard, nearly undoing the progress they'd made. Richard, alone in the room, stared at the ceiling, wondering if it was worth living like this. He thought of selling his companies to Victor, ending the fight once and for all. "Did kindness bring this?" he murmured, the emotional pain sharper than the physical. Outside the hospital, Alex cried against the wall, feeling his influence over Richard had failed. Hope seemed lost, swallowed by the darkness. But an angel appeared. A compassionate nurse, moved by Alex's tears, whispered, "Come with me." She hid him and led him to Richard. "Don't give up," Alex said, holding his mentor's cold hand. This moment tested Richard's faith to the limit, nearly succumbing to depression, but Alex's words rekindled a flame. He remembered the $2, the pure kindness, and something stirred within him. At the height of despair, an old friend called, revealing Victor's fraud with concrete proof. "You can turn this around," he insisted. Inspired, Richard, though weak, decided to fight. For Alex, he thought, making the brave choice to expose Victor. The battle was far from over, but hope was reborn. Alex encouraged, "You're more than money, Uncle Rich." With effort, Richard rose from bed, calling his lawyers to counterattack. The almost fatal obstacle strengthened him, showing that true strength comes from the heart, not the wallet. The hospital room filled with determination, a beacon in the storm. The press reported the heart attack, amplifying the humiliation, but Richard saw an opportunity. "I'll use this against him," he planned, with Alex by his side, a shield of support. The relapse was harsh, but the resurgence promised to be triumphant, a moment that would make the audience hold their breath. But hold on, friends, because the story takes a twist that will leave your jaw dropped. A private investigator hired by Richard stepped in with an explosive revelation. "Victor Crane, the rival, is Alex's biological father," he said, handing over documents proving the abandonment years ago to hide a family scandal. Richard froze, his heart racing. "You're his son," he told Alex, who fell to his knees crying as he processed the blood betrayal. This discovery shook their journey, but strengthened their resolve against Victor. Fate had united them in a way no one predicted. Then, a mysterious ally emerged from the shadows. Raphael, a former Victor employee fired for exposing corruption, appeared with a folder full of proof. "I saw it all. Fraud, bribes," he said, handing over stolen files. Richard gained a powerful weapon, understanding his own vulnerability before the rival for the first time. Alex, learning the truth about his father, felt a rage that consumed him, but he forgave Richard's initial coldness. "You saved me when he abandoned me," he said, helping plan the counterattack. Richard saw a new man in himself, ready to use his wealth for good, not ego. Raphael, a brave whistleblower, confessed, "I want justice for myself and others." He offered detailed testimony, and a plan took shape. Expose Victor in the media with irrefutable evidence. The tension rose, the audience captivated by the narrative. Richard and Alex grew closer, Alex sharing repressed memories of his father. "He left me without a word," he confessed, crying, strengthening his bond with Richard as an adoptive father. The suspense grew. The confrontation would be epic, charged with emotion. Raphael revealed more. Victor planned to buy Richard's company for a pittance, using stolen information. "Now it's our turn to strike back," Richard declared, the power of truth uniting the allies. The revelation changed the trajectory, promising an unforgettable climax. In the end, Richard realized that money without purpose was empty. The mysterious ally and Alex's revelation set the stage for the final battle, with suspense in the air. What would Victor do when confronted with his dark past? It's time, friends. Richard decided to face Victor at a public meeting, armed with Raphael's evidence, ready to expose the corruption. "It's time to end this," he told Alex, who supported him with a steady gaze. Richard had grown from a selfish man to a protector, willing to risk everything for the boy who changed his life. The room was packed, the air thick with anticipation. Victor entered with an arrogant smile, confident. "You've lost everything," he taunted, adjusting his expensive suit. Richard stood up, his voice calm yet powerful. "No, I haven't lost, not with the truth on my side." The change in him was evident, Alex's lessons guiding every word. At stake was the dream of a purposeful life, Richard's dignity, and Alex's future. For him, to the end, Richard thought, recalling the $2 that started it all. Victor seemed invincible, flanked by aggressive lawyers, but Richard knew the truth was his greatest weapon. The tension rose as Richard presented the evidence. Falsified documents, records of Alex's abandonment. The audience gasped. Journalists scribbled frantically. Victor denied, sweat running down his forehead, betraying his fear. "These are lies," he shouted, but the evidence spoke louder. Alex, in the front row, looked on with pride, his hands clenched. Richard continued, his voice breaking, $2 bought me a soul I had lost." Victor countered, calling him a hypocrite, but Richard stayed focused, showing the growth Alex inspired. Victor used dirty tactics, threatening new lawsuits, but Richard played his final card. This man is Alex's father, and he abandoned him without remorse. The revelation left Victor pale, the tension in the room almost suffocating. The audience murmured, feeling the weight of the moment. Richard's victory was near, the crowd on his side. Victor tried to flee, surrounded by journalists and cameras. The decisive moment approached, Richard ready for the final blow, with Alex as his guiding light. "Stay with me," he whispered, and the audience held their breath, eager for the outcome. "We've reached the climax, friends. Hold on tight." At the crowded meeting, Richard revealed the DNA test, proving Victor was Alex's biological father, throwing the audience into a stunned silence. "You abandoned your son on the streets," he shouted, his voice full of empathy, exposing Victor's hypocrisy with every word. Victor tried to deny, stammering excuses, but the evidence cornered him, creating a scene so intense you could feel the air vibrate. Alex stepped onto the stage, his heart in his throat, and faced his father. "Why did you abandon me?" he asked, his voice trembling with emotion. The discussion escalated, Victor attacking Richard with insults, but Richard responded with a calm that came from within, sacrificing his privacy to seek justice. "I do this for him," he said, showing the scars of his own transformation. The difficult choice to reveal everything was an act of pure love. Richard sacrificed a multi-million-dollar partnership with a tech giant to fully expose Victor, losing millions but gaining integrity. $2 were worth more than all my billions, he declared, guided by Alex's lesson. Then came the bombshell. Victor had evaded taxes for years, documents proving every stolen cent. The audience erupted in applause, the sound echoing off the walls. Victor, handcuffed by the police present, muttered threats as he was led away, but Richard replied with dignity, "You lost because you never understood the value of generosity." The scene was grand, camera flashes capturing every second, tears rolling down Alex's face. It was more than a victory. It was redemption. Alex ran to Richard, crying, "You're my father now." Richard hugged him tightly, feeling a redemption money could never buy. The climax marked the end of his old life, a dramatic turn that left the audience with their hearts in their hands. Money lost, but a soul gained, a partial victory that was worth everything. The tension dissolved into relief. Richard and Alex united as a family. The confrontation changed everything, destroying the rival and transforming Richard into a new man. In the end, Richard signed the adoption papers, sealing the climax with love as the crowd cheered. The journey culminated in a new beginning, the antagonist defeated, the protagonist reborn. And you, friend, felt every beat of that heart. But friends, the consequences came like waves after the storm. Victor's imprisonment shook the business world, headlines screaming, "Fall of the Tech Titan." Richard lost millions on the stock market, but gained a respect money could never buy. Alex, now safe in a warm bed, cried with relief, though the nightmares of the street still haunted him, an echo of the past. Richard's employees applauded him at the company, uniting in loyalty. "You inspired us," they said, but he fired the traitors without mercy, cleansing the house with determination. The change was drastic, and Richard, alone at night, wondered, was all this sacrifice worth it? The answer was yet to come. Alex adapted to his new life, but dreams woke him sweating, memories of cold and hunger lingering. Richard comforted him, singing lullabies he learned, strengthening their bond as a father. Victor, in prison, swore vengeance in a dark whisper, creating a residual tension that lingered in the air. The victory was bittersweet, a mix of joy and caution. The media swarmed Richard, calling him the hero of redemption. He donated fortunes to shelters, shifting his company's focus to charity. Alex began therapy with a kind psychologist, healing deep wounds. The impact was immediate, transforming lives across the city. Opportunistic friends reappeared, offering support, but Richard was cautious. "I learned from Alex to value the real," he said. The financial loss stung, but Victor's greed destroyed him. A suspense loomed. Would Victor escape prison? Distant relatives called Richard, reconnecting long-lost bonds. Alex gained an extended family, feeling an occasional nostalgia for the streets that shaped him. The consequence was positive, with hope lighting the uncertain future. Richard reflected in silence. "I lost millions, but gained a son." Alex smiled, calling him Dad, and the question, was it worth it, found its answer. Yes. Despite the high emotional cost, a deep lesson remained. The city saw Richard as a living example, inspiring social movements. Victor rotted in jail, his threat neutralized for now. The climax led to a new balance, lives changed forever, and you, friend, felt the weight of this transformation. Now let's pause a moment, friends, and reflect with Richard. He sat in his empty office, the windows open showing the lights of Los Angeles, and let his mind wander. From a casual encounter with Alex in the alley to Victor's defeat, he saw his life pass like a movie. $2 were my God, he murmured, feeling the pain of financial loss. But Alex showed me the true value, love and connections. The lesson was profound. Material wealth is a house of cards without a human purpose to sustain it. Alex taught Richard that happiness doesn't come from possessions, but from the people we love. "I was blind," he admitted, recalling the emptiness of his penthouse before Alex. A new purpose sprouted, to help others as Alex had helped him, transforming his existence from ashes to light. And you, friend, have you ever thought about what moves you? Pain shapes us like fire to metal, but love heals us and makes us invincible, Richard concluded, echoing Alex's simple street words. This reflection touches you, doesn't it? It invites you to look within and ask, how many times have we put money above the heart? It's a mirror for our lives. Richard now saw money as a tool, not a substitute for relationships. "I lost everything to gain the essential," he thought, with gratitude for Alex filling his chest. This universal lesson calls us to seek meaning beyond superficial success, friends. Have you done that today? He shared this wisdom with employees, inspiring a wave of changes in the company. More donations, more empathy in meetings. Be generous with your time and heart, he said, repeating Alex's lessons. The reflection deepened, showing a growth that made him unrecognizable to the old Richard. Alex, with surprising maturity, reflected, he thought money was everything, but learned the heart is worth more. And together, they understood that the journey was mutual, a lesson in empathy, resilience, and love for all who listened. And you, what do you feel hearing this? For the audience, this story is a crystal clear mirror. How many of us prioritize money over people? Richard's transformation invites a deep reflection on real values, a call to act with kindness. Let this move you, friend. Change something today. Finally, Richard vowed to live this lesson, dedicating himself to lifting children from the streets of LA. The reflection closes with radiant hope. Money is a useful tool, but love is what gives meaning to existence. What a powerful message, huh? But the journey doesn't end here, friends. A moment comes that will fill your eyes with tears. Richard reunited with his older sister Maria, whom he had abandoned years ago due to ambition. In a cafe in Santa Monica, he fell to his knees, crying, "Forgive me for leaving you alone." Maria, with tears in her eyes, hugged him tightly. "You've changed, brother," she whispered. It was a cathartic scene, tears washing away the past like rain healing the earth. Alex, with courage from within, confronted Victor in prison. "You abandoned me, but that led me to Richard," he said, forgiving with a look that broke the heart. Victor, in silence, lowered his head, inspired to seek redemption. This forgiveness freed Alex, an act that moved even the guards. Richard forgave a company traitor, an old friend who had betrayed him. "I learned from Alex that forgiveness heals," he said, offering a second chance. The team embraced, renewing bonds of loyalty, a reconciliation that warmed the heart. Alex reunited with a street friend, Sophia, now in an orphanage supported by Richard. "You saved me indirectly," she cried, hugging him. Alex inspired, showing how compassionate growth can flourish. Raphael visited Richard, sharing his own story of loss. "You gave me purpose," he said, strengthening bonds. Richard hired him as a partner, creating a professional family that laughed together. Richard visited his mother's grave, asking forgiveness with an emotional sob. "Now I understand your lessons," he whispered, feeling peace. Alex consoled him. "She forgives you from heaven." The wind brought a subtle comfort, a scene that touched souls. Childhood friends of Richard came to a house party, celebrating the reconciliation. "You changed everything," they said, and he replied, "Alex transformed me." The reunion inspired laughter and promises, warming the night. The catharsis peaked when Richard officially adopted Alex, sealing mutual forgiveness with papers and hugs. Tears fell, truths were revealed, and the audience felt the human transformation, a moment that will stay with you. Now, let's reap the fruits, friends. Richard reclaimed his company, stocks rising after Victor's exposure. The city applauded him as a philanthropist, presenting awards and applause at lavish galas. The money returned, but now with a purpose that lit up his eyes. Victor was sentenced to a long prison term, paying for his crimes with years of isolation. "Justice has been served," Richard said, relieved, while Victor in a letter admitted, "You won with your heart, not dirty money." It was a poetic justice that warmed the audience's heart. Richard found love with a compassionate woman, Eleanor, forming a family with Alex. The reward was emotional, genuine happiness beyond status. He donated millions, inspiring other magnates to follow. Alex gained a stable life, elite education, and Richard's paternal love. "You saved me," Alex said, and Richard, moved, replied, "You saved me first." Mutual recognition brought a deep satisfaction that overflowed. Richard's company thrived with a new ethic, focused on sustainability. Employees praised him as a transformative leader, and he created funds for street children, a legacy of justice that echoed in the streets. Victor lost everything: family, fortune, honor. "I underestimated the power of good," he confessed in a prison interview. Justice was sweet, and Richard emerged stronger, a beacon of hope. Richard received the Humanitarian of the Year award, dedicating it to Alex on stage. "He taught me the real value of life." The audience rose, applauding, feeling the emotion of the transformation we witnessed together. The final reward was an eternal legacy. Richard, once obsessed with money, became a symbol of redemption. Justice against Victor and happiness with Alex brought complete emotional fulfillment, and you, friend, felt every bit of this victory. A year later, friends, the lives of Richard and Alex blossomed like a new tree. Richard lived a balanced life, putting family and charity first. Together, they traveled across LA and beyond, helping the needy and teaching youth to do business with ethics. The Beverly Hills mansion, once cold, now echoed with children's laughter, a welcoming home that felt like a true family. Alex adapted to private school, making loyal friends and dreaming of helping others. "I want to be like you, Uncle Rich," he said. And Richard, with a smile, replied, "Be better than me with more heart." The inspiration cycle began, a flame of wisdom igniting. Richard founded an NGO for street children, with Alex as a child ambassador, a smiling face that motivated donations. They rescued more Alexis from the streets, creating a movement that spread like wildfire. The journey was complete, but a new chapter opened, full of promises. Raphael, now a partner, managed the company, giving Richard time to live. "You gave me a second chance," Raphael said, and Richard laughed, reconnecting with his past by visiting poor neighborhoods, helping with hands and heart. Alex led a national campaign, raising record funds. "Everyone deserves a family," he preached, gaining admirers at every corner. Richard watched the boy grow, proud of the maturity blossoming like a flower. The city erected statues for Richard, the reformed hero, and annual awards honored him. He wrote a book, $2 of Hope, encouraging readers to value relationships over wealth, a bestseller that touched millions. The new beginning included Richard's marriage to Elena, forming a complete family. Alex gained adoptive siblings, and Richard found a peace he never dreamed of. The audience saw the cycle close, a radiant hope for the future. Richard and Alex planted a tree in the alley where they met, a symbol of growth. "This is where our story began," they said, ready to inspire more with wisdom and maturity from the soul. "We've reached the end, friends, but what an end." Let's reflect with Richard and Alex, sitting together on a balcony at sunset in LA. Richard looks at the sky, his eyes wet, and murmurs, $2 were my God, but Alex showed me the true treasure, love and connection. The lesson is profound, isn't it? He realized that material wealth is like a house without foundations if there's no human purpose to sustain it. This journey took him from loneliness to fulfillment, and you feel it with him. Alex taught Richard that happiness isn't in the things we possess, but in the people we love. "I was blind," he confesses, recalling the empty days in the penthouse before Alex. A new purpose sprouted, to help others, as Alex helped him, transforming his existence from ashes to light. And you, friend, have you thought about what moves you? Pain shapes us like fire to metal, but love heals us and makes us invincible, Richard says, repeating Alex's simple street words. This reflection touches you, doesn't it? It invites you to look within and ask, how many times have we put money above the heart? It's a mirror for our lives. Richard now sees money as a tool, not a substitute for relationships. "I lost everything to gain the essential," he thinks, with gratitude for Alex filling his chest. This universal lesson calls us to seek meaning beyond superficial success, friends. Have you done that today? He shared this wisdom with employees, inspiring a wave of changes in the company, more donations, more empathy in meetings. "Be generous with your time and heart," he said, echoing Alex's lessons. The reflection deepens, showing a growth that makes him unrecognizable to the old Richard. Alex, with surprising maturity, reflects. He thought money was everything, but learned the heart is worth more. Together, they understand that the journey was mutual, a lesson in empathy, resilience, and love for all who listen. And you, what do you feel hearing this? For the audience, this story is a crystal clear mirror. How many of us prioritize money over people? Richard's transformation invites a deep reflection on real values, a call to act with kindness. Let this move you, friend. Change something today. Finally, Richard vowed to live this lesson, dedicating himself to lifting children from the streets of LA. The reflection closes with radiant hope. Money is a useful tool, but love is what gives meaning to existence. What a powerful message, huh? I am Marcos Paulo, and this story reminds us that kindness can change the world. What will you do today to make a difference? Leave your comment, share it with those who need to hear it, and subscribe for more stories that touch the soul. Like the video, and let's spread this light together. Until next time, with an open heart.